would say that I was a pretty xenophobic child. People with moles scared me. Yawns. I remember the first time anyone ever yawned. That scared me. People whose behaviors were crude scared me. And by crude, I mean just not very well spoken. A lot of things scared me as a child. And part of what eventually helped me get over it was when I was in situations where I was left alone with somebody I was afraid of. And I basically got bad feelings from them, and I would have to do something to protect myself. What I found very early on was that I could basically put myself inside of other people. I wouldn't hurt me, right? And I found by giving people hugs and holding on to them, even when they grossed me out, I basically could prevent bad scenarios from happening. And it was a really icky feeling at first, but it was self-defense is what I was doing, is that I was anticipating something bad to happen. And so I would give them a hug, basically merge with them. And so I had to face these achy feelings inside of myself and overcome them. And I overcame them through meditation, because it was the most natural way to clean myself from the inside out, is that I would focus my thoughts on who I wanted to be inside, and it would burn up the other stuff inside me like a fire. That eventually became my way of navigating when I was forced to go through the public school system, even though they found out that I was autistic. Basically denied it, and that's how I kept my center going through the public school system, is by meditating. When I have all this stuff going on around me I didn't really have to face, just being at home with my mom and playing in my room with my toys for the first 4.5 whatever years of my life, 5 years of my life. Now having to face it, I found that I basically just meditate to survive and keep myself centered from all the noise going on around me. So I personally, and they say children can sense bad people. I think that we're living in a bad world. I just think that you kind of need to be careful with that, but simultaneously, there's a very high probability that a person's appearance is related to their behaviors, and you can't disconnect the two, right? So they're not necessarily wrong. It's just that eventually, growing up and as an adult, you have to be able to face people, because the only way that we're going to get through this is by fixing the problem, by being there for each other. So this ties into the model that I gave people that is pinned to my profile, the chart where it use game theory and the Bible as a logic puzzle together to determine the best outcomes in Earth's history over the years. And once again, I'll remind everyone, in case you haven't seen me talk about that before, that's a very humble chart for something very serious and very big. What I'm actually describing is years of work if you were doing this without the help of enterprise architecture, or basically being a genius, that you can do it in your head. And I think some people can. And I think you should just try to do it in your head, but you also have to recognize the fact that you have to be accurate, and you have to actually have a realistic understanding of how people will react in various circumstances, and not have any bias that would change the outcome, because as you progress, you can get further and further away from the truth if you get anything wrong. So either you use, enterprise architecture, you can use computers on AWS or another place, or use your own hardware resources, very good, or be very skilled and do it in your head, because you can use your head as a computer. You can take over your imagination and use it to model scenarios instead of fantasies. Use it to model realistic scenarios. So I can make some pretty normal statements about the data doing that I think everyone can agree with. Now, is that when you study social sciences and you study medical sciences, you have a different way of thinking about people in general, right? And basically, at some point in your education, you're kind of there for everyone. It really doesn't matter, what medical condition a person is facing. It doesn't matter what psychological condition a person is facing. You're the person that people go to for help because you're the most educated there and you are the most willing and comfortable to help, right? So if we were to take this model and multiply it across the board, which we can realistically do because we can see how education has changed and progressed throughout the years, and it continues to. They're teaching nanotechnology in junior high now, and basically things that took philosophers their lives to do are now taught in elementary school. That's what they did with their lives, and precept is built upon precept, and we're building on top of their work because that work was done. It's elementary school material because it was done in the lifespan of an old man. To know people, not as apt people back then, obviously, because they didn't have all the work that was done, except possibly in a few cases, people with savant syndrome, that they were able to get through a lot of work very quickly, and they were highly revered in society. So basically, when people have to go out and face other people in the world, they're still facing xenophobia, and a lot of people may want to try to remedy this effect in people by punishing it. But the problem is that this is all math, right? And if you take a switch to situations out in your environment, by switch when maybe this never happened to you, but some families, the parents cut off a branch from a tree to beat their child, to snap their child with it if they're misbehaving, right? So that's what I mean by switch. And switch is violent. It's violent. I don't believe in that because there's a lot of reasons. It's not necessary if you're doing things right. Is the summary of it. But going back to my point, doing it, if you're using a switch to solve problems, you're basically replicating that energy across your environment. Now, everything that you don't want to happen is replaced with hurt, right? So, yeah, you have these, the bigger the risk of somebody harming themselves, the bigger the reminder they need. Don't spare the rod kind of thing. It makes sense, but the fact is we can still do better than that. And if you're replicating this math around the environment of violence, that's what you're going to have, right? And so people get on camera, or in their words, they basically use abuse as a mechanism to deter xenophobia, but we're not actually treating the problem in people by being forceful and hurtful with our words to other people. We're just deterring it. We're putting a very strong reminder there not to do this. But the fact is, people still go around out. You go to drive-thrus, you go to movie theaters, you go to restaurants, you go to shopping centers, and you're in contact with people that make you uncomfortable, right? Okay, now let's go back to our model. If you had a PhD in psychology and you were also a medical doctor, the way that you're perceiving these people, what's making you uncomfortable, has changed dramatically, right? So we can see that the best outcome is that people don't make us uncomfortable no matter what condition they're in. Okay, now let's say society has come to a point where basically, before they're even out of junior high, they think like doctors and advanced psychologists do today. This education has been condensed, or otherwise the mechanisms in which we educate ourselves have been innovated, which I'm doing, and so this is why I can also realistically say this. Let's say that before people even make it out of junior high, they basically have the mindset to treat people's bodies and behaviors as somebody with both a PhD in psychology and a PhD in medical science. Now, let's say that after that has taken place, 2,000 more years have passed. The efficiency of people being good to each other is getting better and better and better and better and better and better. So now you're at a point where you're not xenophobic around people. You're in very deep, healthy relationships with anybody as though they were your own family, right? What happens if one of your family members did have a problem? What are you going to do? You're going to help them immediately. There's not even going to be a question. If you see one of your family members is gaining significant amounts of weight before it even becomes a problem, you're going to go get them. You're going to go take them by the hand. You're going to guide them through exercising, and you're going to kiss their forehead and be with them there throughout the entire process. And then the way people are thinking, as this xenophobia is leaving, they're basically perceiving anyone in their environment as their own family. Now, let's look at 2 points here: the point in the past and the point in the future, of coming to a point where people have the equivalent education of a social sciences and a medical PhD before they got a junior high, and 2,000 years have passed after that, and it's still getting better, right? The 2 points, it doesn't matter what people look like or what people act like. The most important part that has changed is how people are thinking about them and how people are responding to situations. And so basically we can take a shortcut by going ahead and doing that. The fact that we know that we're going to push ourselves to be there for other people, regardless of what situation they're in, regardless of what type of behaviors they're exhibiting, because we understand their condition as a mental illness, or we understand that we understand their condition as something that not only can they overcome, but it's our responsibility, and we want them to be our responsibility. We feel content in our heart and glad when they are safe, even if they're a stranger, right? You look at them, they see a member of your own family, and you're going to go after them, and you're going to make sure that they're safe. And safe means a lot of things. They need to be safe inside themselves by having the tools that they need to overcome what's going on inside of them. And you're going to always do that, and along this pattern, right, where things are going right, and they progressively do get better. And there's a lot of turbulence while things are getting better, and people's conscience is being conflicted, and some parts of our society have matured in some ways, and other parts of society have matured in different ways, and they don't understand each other, a lot like Republicans and Democrats. But eventually they're going to come to the same conclusions together, right? And so that's what we should do, is that we should go ahead and change the way that we think about other people and work on ourselves, and to be there for others no matter what. Thank you.